Hello and welcome to Sonic Talk episode 486. This is the show, in case you were wondering, that talks about music production, the technology behind making music, studios, synthesizers, software, DJ, controllers, you name it, we'll cover it, and a lot more besides. And as part of our regular panelists, we have people from all over the industry. This week, in fact, I have Mr. Richard Hilton, who's here from Connecticut, where he's Nile Rodgers studio guy, as well as being in the traveling disco touring act Chic, who are legendary. And I did want to say, Rich, commiserations for the recent passing of one of the sisters, which seems like inconceivable in many ways, and a very special lady.
Yes, indeed. Yes, she was. I'll miss Joni terribly, and we have performed together many times, and did a tour together recently in Europe as part of a sort of large traveling flea circus, and she's one of a kind, and she will be missed.
I can imagine.
It's very sad, and she's also my age, so
yeah, and pretty young. I mean, she was in her 60s, so not
she was 60.
60, yeah, just turned right. But anyway, I mean, I'm sure you have lots of good and fond memories, and fortunately for us, her wonderful voice has been captured in perpetuity on all of those great Sister Sledge records and others, I'm sure, besides. So
yes,
that's something we can celebrate.
We will be left with her enduring and wonderful legacy of vocal work and creative work and humanitarian work. She was a very nice lady, Joni, and I know a lot of my friends who are in the band are crushed, and I know the rest of the family is crushed, and
of course
we all are.
It feels somehow, perhaps I shouldn't have started with that slightly down note, but it's nice to celebrate people when, even the short amount of time we have them, and the fact that they've been able to kind of put so much into the world of music. But perhaps we should move on. I should say, actually, also thank you to everybody for joining us. We've got the YouTube chat room, and we've also got our live web. Oops, that's not it. It's this one. I'm already flustered. Our live chat room, if you want to head over to that, sonicstate.com/live will take you to the web-based IRC, so you can join in there. I'm still trying to figure out a way to combine the two, but I don't think it's entirely possible. Also want to say thanks to our show sponsors, Isotope. There'll be a competition prize for them later on, featuring Neutron, the kind of visual mixing and assistant tool, so do stay tuned for that. So where shall we start? Where to start? Well, I suppose we have, new iPads. We can get a red iPhone if you want. I guess that's something that somebody might want. But these new iPads are kind of interesting. They've got the new A9 processor, which is what you find in the iPad Pro. And also, they're pretty cheap. Starting at 32 gigs, you've got $329 US, which seems that's like $70 cheaper than I'm sure they used to start at $399, and they were only 16 gigs. So, I mean, without being too Apple centric, I mean, this has got to be a good thing, right?
Sure. When they create a Pro line, it creates a new market in the midline where they can compete perhaps more successfully with the other guys' clone, the other guys' tablet devices, Kindle and various Android devices and such. And so, sure, it makes stuff available to more people. It makes me wonder if it'll become easier for me I'm starting to
feeling the edges.
My dear iPad Mini 2 is feeling long in the tooth these days, though it works fine and runs the operating system perhaps a tad slower than I'd like, but runs it fine. And part of me says it ain't broke, and part of me says I'm getting tired of waiting for this thing. Yep. So it sort of bodes well as a harbinger, perhaps. There's a lot of whispers, might as well go all the way there, about how they might be getting out of sort of the midline laptop business and going into this sort of converted iPad business, sort of the way the Surface line runs, where you have a detachable tablet product that has a keyboard, and essentially they're actually trying to work their way, I think, into laptop replacement. And when it first came out, these things, I wondered if they would ever be sort of spawned into replacing laptops. And It makes me wonder. Apple's business makes me wonder, because I do think they're going to do away with MacBook Air and just go with MacBook and MacBook Pro. And then I think they're going to morph some version of an iPad Pro or something into, well, they already have.
Yeah.
Sort of morphed into the sort of Surface Pro area with the keyboard, the integrated keyboard and all that.
I wonder, I mean, it's curious because I'd imagine, you know, most people, I'd imagine when you're looking at a lovely thing like a MacBook Pro, I mean, I don't expect it's supposed to be any kind of special user, but when you look at one, you go, oh, yeah, I can do all this stuff with it. But most people, when we're using laptops, are probably 70 or 80 or possibly 90% of the time, it's emails, web browsing, and kind of basic stuff. I mean,
right.
that's not, you know, I mean, that is a massive generalization. But if you think about the market split, the number of people
it's true.
Perhaps are using them for kind of pro. I mean, I've got, like I said, I've been documenting my kind of ups and downs with this new MacBook Pro 15 i7, which is blindingly fast, but, you know, has a few little foibles and nooks and crannies that, but I'm going to be using it. The reason I got one is because I want to process video super fast. I mean, and it's no surprise, you know, we go to NAMM. If I shoot 12 hours of video at NAMM and it takes me 12 hours to crunch it, that's 2 whole days spent. If it only takes me 3 hours to crunch it, that's actually a massive, you know, bonus and achieve. But most of the time, it's sitting here in front of me and it's doing fairly basic kind of tasks. So I guess it makes sense for Apple to think in those terms. But again, I mean, we've gone here before, but we need some big pro chunky beasts for us content creators to use as well. I mean,
well, and they've just recently issued some form of proclamation that insists that we are not only aren't we abandoning the pro market, we're going whole hog. I mean, they made some sort of mission statement that they're going to continue to support pro markets, and don't you guys worry at all. We're still here for you. Now, that's one of two things. That's either we're going to see some really cool new product, or it's the harbinger bell.
Yeah, or what it means is we're going to come out with
something disappearing.
We're coming out with something new that has an entirely new and unsupported widely busing structure that you can only buy products from Apple and a load of adapters to interface into the stuff.
Forget about any cart bus slot devices and all that you may.
That's funny. I was going through. We've just cleared out one of the rooms here. Lee Kemp, who's local to us, came over and helped out. We took 3 carloads of flattened cardboard to the tip, and I started to find things. And one of the things I found in the room were like these old SCSI cables and SCSI interfaces, and I was thinking, gosh, God, and old tape drives and stuff. I was thinking,
Scott,
yeah,
I got a rig across the room right now, running on an old G4. System 10.3, retrospect 6.1, and I'm doing a data restoration picnic over there down in the room for like a period of months.
Is it still? Have you still got it because you're rebuilding the same catalog of the same tape?
Well, that's the point. Is you can actually stick these tapes into current versions of retrospect and let it painstakingly rebuild that catalog with gobs of errors. And instead, a friend of mine turned up a working G4 with a working version of Retrospect 6.1, and I had a AIT 2 turbo drive sitting, waiting for a good use, and it has become my current mission, one of them, to extricate all of that data that I thought was secure on these tapes and put it back into hard drives so that I have some means of getting at it. Not really so much that I need to get at it, but Mr. Rogers deserves to be able to get at his data. And
but then when you've got it all back on off tape, you're going to have to then keep those drives alive and then copy it across. But
I've been keeping things on drives ever since I couldn't trust their tape. And the day they said we no longer read those old catalog files was the day they and I were done.
Yeah. You can't have an archive system and decide not to support.
Signed, sealed, and delivered at that moment. Yeah. There was never going to be a turning back love affair between me and them. And now I'm going to extricate myself from the bonds of whoever decided that this is. I understand sort of why they did what they did, and I understand that they felt it was necessary, but it left people who were completely dependent on their stuff in a real bind.
Yeah.
Anyway. So I'm painstakingly restoring, half-completed ideas and finished recordings and all kinds of stuff, projects and stuff that never was attached to any project, and I'm just trying to get him back all his data.
Yeah, well, that's a worthy project.
Yeah.
But I think these iPads are going to be out. They usually announce and then they ship pretty quick, don't they? So it starts at 329 for the 32 gig, which seems like, so I guess in the UK we're probably going to see a similar price for dollar, because it's
some interesting things. They have like leaps of, there's a product, I think it's got a 32 gig model and a 128 gig model. I mean, there's no 64, there's just, you get the little one, you got the big one. They've kind of slimmed down the product line. I don't think there's more than 2 options for any of them in terms of memory size.
It's probably not a bad idea. Keeps it simple. I mean, I suppose if the major price leaps are just, you need more storage, have more storage, not just have a bit more storage, because whatever you get, you're always going to run out these days. So you may as well.
They always seem to eliminate the one I think I like having. It's true. No, they did. And the interesting thing now is they're reintroducing 32 gig, which disappeared from the phone line for a minute there, I think. I think at one point they pulled the 32 gig phone, and I was like, really? And now like the bottom end of one of these new iPads is 32 gig.
Yeah. It's a bit like buying a TV package. There's never quite the channels you want. It's always one or the other. Anyway,
well, people are rebelling against that too. Television business is changing like crazy. I don't know about over there, but a lot of people are divesting themselves of their cable subscriptions around here.
Yeah, well, I went to Freeview, and this is not very music technology related, but I went to Freeview, and then I thought I'll ditch my cable. And they make it so expensive to just have broadband, and it's not quite as fast as what you've got, that it's actually cheaper to keep your TV package and keep your broadband. And so I saved like 350 quid a year just by saying I don't want that. And, but I've still got essentially the same.
The nice thing is there's a lot of really good television content available via streaming services. And so you don't necessarily have to buy all the way up their package to keep yourself watching cool stuff all the time.
Well, subscriptions actually is quite an interesting topic, really. If we see my excellent segue there from there to to this. I don't know if anyone saw this at NAMM. I don't know if we've actually talked about this, but this is the new or the currently testing Roland Cloud system. So the idea with this is basically you subscribe, you get all the plugins. Well, that's the idea. Let me just see if I can get the web page up while this plays.
From Roland here at NAMM 2017.
So you got like high resolution instruments.
The Roland Cloud is actually an online initiative that Roland is working on that will host massive sound libraries in the cloud along with downloadable softwares, vintage Roland.
This was very much in the future at that point, but they've actually now released, they've gone up to 4.0 release, and now there's all these kind of various different instruments and legacies. So you can get the IRA plugins, you can get sample-based instruments. There's a Terra piano, which is something like sort of 4 terabytes of piano, which you can download a local version, play it, send your file up, have it render back to you at high resolution, and maybe you can hear the difference. So they're trying a number of things, and it's a very interesting concept. I guess in many ways they've seen the future, and the future appears, at least in their minds, to be subscription based, because you've got repeat payments, you can project, how many users you got. I mean, as a business model, it makes perfect sense. I mean, if only we had the same kind of thing going on here, then it'd be like, I know if I had this many subscribers, then I'm guaranteed X amount. But it's a very interesting kind of notion. I'm not sure it works in the music kind of scenario so much. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it does.
Well, in the music creation scenario rather than...
I think it does. Well, subscription model as a general sales point seems to have been proven to us over and over and over and over and over again in the last 30 years, starting from television and working. Where the initial bait was that we're going to provide you with commercial-free programming, and that went away like very quickly. And now we have subscription radio services where we buy that, and then pretty much almost all the software companies are going over to yearly subscription models. A lot of them are anyway. So everybody's trying to get, and obviously your phone service, everybody's trying to get into the act. And as I was saying earlier about people, established companies, even along the lines of Roland, who do have money for this kind of R&D, and that was kind of the contrasting point to the one I was making before. These people can afford to invest some risk capital in what the future of this business is, and on some level, we're seeing a turn away from application-specific hardware into these sort of generalized hardware shells that host various kinds of software emulations and things like that. And they've been sort of promoting that in hardware for the last few years. And now they want to be able to provide the content for those things remotely on a subscription basis so that no matter where you are with their stuff, you can go ahead and just use this vast library that you're paying whatever $20 a month for or whatever they're asking. And I can see it for a lot of people, especially with the way music is made in mobile environments today, and people are not anchored to control rooms and recording studios like they used to be. It makes all the sense in the world to me to have stuff, a vast quantity of stuff available to you no matter where you are. You could be sitting in the pizzeria with that aforementioned MacBook Pro and a set of headphones, producing up a track in pick your favorite DAW software. And you need a sound that Softube's Modular won't give you, and you want to go look at some Roland stuff, or maybe you have a fondness for an old Jupiter 8 patch that you'd like to hear right here. The fact that you can go get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I take your point. I would just have a quick look at the web. These are the instruments you get. You got the IRA series, so you're getting System 8 in software. You're getting System 1. And I'm thinking there must be the plugouts as well available for it. Legendary, these are the software plugouts. So, so we've got these guys, Jupiter 8, SH101, System 100, ProMars. These are all available as plugouts, either for System 1. Well, they all fit in the System 8. And then rather interestingly, this is the Terra Piano, which is Cloud's. I'm not so sure about that one. Anthology is... these are kind of sample instruments, and the Anthology 1987 is kind of interesting because it's basically a bunch of presets from the D50, but sample based rather than kind of modeled, which I'm not sure is the thing. Anyway, I was coming back. The idea is, if somebody like Native Instruments did this, because they've got a massively long legacy of plugins across all different verticals, whether it's instruments or effects or waves. It makes sense to flip there because these guys have got a history. With Roland, it's sort of that legacy of in software at least is not there, so it's a harder sell at the outset.
I believe it was 1986. I was in my friend's basement in New Jersey recording MIDI sequences to Roland software.
Right.
So, I take your point in terms of where their visibility in the marketplace has been for the ensuing 40 years or whatever it is. Everybody's moving sideways in this business, trying to figure out where the next business model is, and it's interesting thing to watch. And Roland, like I said, can afford to fail on some of these things, which a lot of smaller companies can't afford to do.
Do you think they will? Because the other thing
I don't think they will. I think this is a good idea. But
I think the other thing about it is, obviously, if I wanted a couple of these plugins, say I wanted the SH101 and the ProMars, after a couple of months, I'm kind of maybe done with it. I know what I can do. I've got what I need out of it. I sort of don't necessarily need that anymore. So maybe the cloud thing makes sense, but if I don't want to use it anymore because I'm kind of done with it or it goes out of fashion, do I not need a much broader palette and range of sounds that I could get from any subscription service, whether it be Roland, whether it be Native Instruments? And it feels like to me the Roland set of instruments, while there's enough to kind of it starts at $19.99 beta test a month. Then it goes up to $29.99, and then it's the Storm, which I'm not entirely clear what you get with that exactly, is $40 a month. That's a considerable amount of cash that they're sort of after.
Yes, and I guess you can do it on a month-to-month basis. You don't have to buy a year.
Yeah, I guess I
didn't look that deeply into. I did actually read through that whole FAQ and watch their video, but I didn't get this information.
Yeah, well,
Korg is also, by the way, doing some version of this, although they tend to be their whole gadget thing is based in sort of a different concept.
Yeah, buy it, keep it.
Yeah, they're not really working the subscription model, though. I suppose they've also created. Everybody's also creating sort of the UA model where everything they sell you has aftermarket purchases available from within it. And it goes into, iPads, game software does this, but music guys have figured that out. So my Novation Launchpad has a ton of content that I can buy for it at, a few bucks and have different kinds of loops and stuff playing. And all of these guys are basically viewing this as a spigot into your wallet to be able to sell you content, to be able to use this thing in more creative ways. And it all makes perfect sense to me as a business model. So I guess, the gadget stuff is probably designed mostly that way, whereas these guys are going straight into the whole monthly. I mean, $40 a month is a lot to pay to get to use a software synth. I'll agree with you on that one.
Or even 4 or 5, or 6. I think you need a more compelling, I would imagine you need a more compelling collection of stuff that you just can't get anywhere else to make that the case. And I'm surprised, for instance, they didn't just go for, let's make the D50 proper software emulation as a plug out rather than a sample base, and make it only available via the cloud, because that's going to pull people in, right?
Fair enough. Yeah, I agree. Yes, absolutely. But they're banking a lot on this Terra piano, apparently. Boy, that piano better be pretty good, huh? That piano better sound freaking great. That's all I can say. Because I agree with you. It's a lot of money. If that's what they're charging to use like individual instruments.
Well, I think you get access to all of them. I'm not sure about how the Terra piano works.
I thought it was some form of $20 subscription where you had access to a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, that's right. You do, and I think one of them is a Terra.
To
be honest, I saw.
So you better be using it pretty regularly.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing. I set up an account, and I'm still actually not that much wiser about how it works or what exactly it offers. But maybe this will become clearer. I suppose the thing is, it feels a little bit clear. People like to know exactly. You can get a free month. I mean, it's well worth checking out. You just go to rolandcloud.com, which is right here, and you can get a free month. Just sign up and you can try it out. So, I mean, there's nothing lost, and you don't have to put any credit card details in. So you could just check the whole thing out and see where it gets you.
Yeah.
So why not?
Yeah.
But anyway, an interesting move by a company. I think that's the thing. It was an interesting move because it's not a company that's primarily thought of for their software offerings. It's more, particularly with all the hardware they've released in the last couple of years, it seems to be more their thing than their software thing. Although the code that they use for their ACB technology and the plugouts is transportable and can be put into those. So that kind of makes sense, but not quite in a massively coherent way to me. So we'll have to see how it goes. Right, I think it might be time for a word from our sponsors. Why ever not? Oh, that's not even them. So we want to say thank you very much to iZotope for their continued sponsorship of the show. If I can get the actual, there we are. This is news of Neutron. If you're a regular viewer of the show, you'll know that they've been sponsoring us for a while, and they've been offering it as a competition. Neutron is, of course, a kind of selection of features which allows you to visualize your mix more clearly. It makes very intelligent suggestions on how you might process individual instruments. You can start there and then take it, more extreme, less extreme, and there's also the masking meter, which is a very interesting piece of technology which shows you the frequency clashes in mixes that you might not be able to hear depending on your monitoring setup. So it just gives you another way of reading the way that the frequency is working in the mix. If you're not perhaps fluent in reading FFT or spectrum analysis, this will help you greatly. And it gives you just, like I say, another way to try things to clear up those clashes, to create more space and open out the mix. It's actually a very interesting selection of plugins. Neutron is its name. You can download it for free at iZotope.com/Neutron and experience, as it says in the ad, their best ESP yet. And as we know, Charles, Chicky, and quite a number of our panelists have actually said, yeah, it's actually pretty impressive technology. So we encourage you to try it out. And we've also got a possibility of you winning a copy. We could actually start with the winner from last week. Last week's winner, and it's another one of those prophetic tweets, which is just picked by random via our random number picker. And this tweet is by a chap called, or a lady called Bureaucrat, like Bocrat, I think, BEAUCRAT. You won, and what you tweeted was, hey, Sonicstate and iZotope, is it my turn to win? Actually, it is this week. It's your lucky week. So if you want to get in touch, the Twitter handle that you use is Bureaucrat, BEAUCRAT. So do get in touch, and we'll send you the codes. And of course, this week we got another competition. We need to be on Twitter, so you tweet the hashtag MixVisualizer. That's one word with a Z, visualizer, and the hashtag Neutron, Neutron, to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. So that's the hashtag MixVisualizer and the hashtag Neutron to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. And you will be entered to the competition for next week's competition prize. So go to it. And we want to say thank you very much to Isotope for their continued sponsorship of the show. Right, let's see what's on next. What do you... I know, let's go for this one, because this one might be a bit... here we go. This is the latest plugin from Output. This is a fantastic video. No trickery, just all mechanical choreography. So these are all people from the Output team playing a new plugin called Analog Strings. And basically it combines string samples and loops and tape loops with string machine samples and various different effects. There's also a lot of kind of sound design kind of stuff, and all of these people are part of the team. Not sure if they're all playing Output, but there are a number of other analog strings, but there are another outputs there as well. Instruments. So I'm trying to figure out if that's a drone or a crane. That's in the camera. But anyway, this is the new instrument from Output. So that's another question. Let's have a look. I've got analog strings. Let's go to the web page. You can see it's all very stylish. And to be honest, beautiful animation here. I thought it was a standalone instrument. It's actually contact based. So they've done some pretty clever things with the contact GUI and what have you. So it's got this is the interface that you get. Lots of really interesting stuff. Have you tried any of the Output stuff, Rich? I mean, it's been advertised very heavily. Certainly over here, there's the Exhale Substance, which is their bass synth, which has been all over YouTube recently, and Rev, which is another synthesizer. Have you checked out any of their stuff?
I have not. It was all news to me this morning while I was preparing for the show. And this is a very interesting plug-in instrument. I didn't realize it was running in Contact either.
It does run in Contact Player, by the way, I should say.
Okay. But obviously I would be running it in a full version of Contact, and that means it would run in a full version of Contact. Seems very heavily leaning towards cinematic and textural presentations, and not imitative, or in other words, it's not in any way similar to, say, G-Force's Virtual String Machine.
Sure.
It's not seeking to present you with the sound of an ARP Omni.
No.
So when it says analog strings, it's not really so much a legacy product. And like I said, they lean very heavily in the program, in the videos, the promotional stuff. I actually haven't operated the thing, but in their presentations of it and those jams that they had from the office there that they were showing us with the drone camera, it was all very sort of atmospheric and not sounding very much like strings.
Right. So more. Yeah.
I'm not complaining, I swear. But it's just the fact of the matter is the product's called Analog Strings, and there's a lot of it that doesn't sound very much like strings at all, which is fine with me. It's just it does sound cool. The interface, the user interface, looks really interesting. You could do a lot of cool things with timings and moving things around in time and various sequences you could load to control and edit to control how that happens in 2 channels, and very nice, clean interface. A lot of really interesting and cool sounds.
Yeah, I've got a video here. I think this is this in action, so you can hear it a bit more. You would be able to hear it more clearly if I was playing it out of the right output. Just 1 second. I will get there in 1 second. There we go. These are the sort of things you can do with it. And they seem to have multi-sampled. They have multi-sampled a lot of strings as well, so I'm guessing it must be possible.
Yeah. There's a synth-based engine and a sample-based engine.
how do I stop that? I think I do it like that. But I mean, yes, you're right. It seems to be more about kind of stuff that's unusual rather than your classic kind of Hans Zimmer style, big orchestral sort of business, which I suppose is something that you might wish to or not choose.
To that extent, yes, but Hans also does atmospheric things, and this might actually suit some of that. But no, it's not imitative. It doesn't make you want to reach for the bow and the rosin. There's a lot of cool plucky stuff, like what you just played had a bit of a harp sample component to it that was really nice and used in the context of all these other kind of atmospheric things that they're doing. And I do, it's a very nice engine. They've got 3 different engines sort of running side by side, one of which is straight up samples, one of which is sort of synth and some of that uses samples as oscillators, it seems. And a third one was kind of like the crazy stuff, I don't, they don't call it crazy stuff, but the third lane was the offbeat stuff that, it wasn't quite burning piano, but getting there. And you mix and match between all of that, and you've got 2 different engines to play with, and a lot of neat enveloping tricks and a lot of cool sequencing arpeggiator style timing tricks. And
I think what's interesting is because their previous, the Rev and also Substance, is really going for the kind of now production kind of sound. So they're obviously bringing these big areas of sort of string samples and what have you, sort of more pulling it more away from traditional use into this kind of electronic music production, which I don't think is a bad thing at all. It's a 39 gig library, so it's not insignificant. It costs $199. And you need Contact Player or the full version of Contact to check it out. But it's definitely, it always catches the eye because they do great marketing materials for it. So in this case, marketing is very powerful in this instance because it implies this stylish and I want to be that good kind of file. So whatever it is, they're pitching it very, very well. So I like the fact that they're doing that.
I need to be more aware of these guys, and some of what they're doing reminds me of some companies that I'm aware of called Sonic Faction and Heaviosity, both of whom have particularly Heaviosity instruments in this sort of model that run within Contact and do cool things, some of which are timing based.
Yep. Absolutely, I need to check them out as well. I don't run lots of massive sample. One of the reasons is because I've only got a small SSD in my laptop, and also I've never got the right drive which has got all the stuff on it because I like to use portable drives and they're never quite big enough to house everything. So I've got
a product for you then.
Oh, do tell.
There's a company here in the US that makes basically SSD dongles in pretty significant sizes. Ooh. Chances are bigger than what you're.
What are they called? I'm going to look it up.
Where's mine? Mine is connected at the moment.
It's so small, you've lost it.
I don't know if I can actually get it on camera, given the way it's this thing.
So they use those little ones. Those are the same ones that are in the. They're not 2.5-inch. They're the same ones that are in the MacBook Pros. What's the make of it? I'll see if I can look it up.
Well, I use OWC Computing, which used to go by MacSales.com. I don't know what they go by these days. So I've been using them for this product, and I basically have been putting music and picture libraries on them, and it runs, as they say in Boston, wicked fast, and feels like you've just got another drive hanging off your computer.
Okay. Well, what I've got here is
very small, weighs next to nothing.
OWC Envoy Pro, which looks like it's actually a portable bus-powered USB 3 enclosure for Apple Flash SSDs. So it doesn't come with the SSD, at least that one that I found. Maybe
right. This thing is a self-contained, fully operational plug-and-play, wicked fast,
nice
SSD, and they're not that expensive.
Okay, that's worth checking out.
Just buying an SSD. They're not really that much more expensive.
But it's also worth mentioning because the SSDs inside these new Mac Pros, which are the same format, they're kind of like small. They're half, 2.5. They're, well, I guess 1.75 or something like that. Or no, what would it be? 1.25 wide. They're faster than your standard. They're a different level of performance because it's absolutely blindingly fast in here. The rendering speed and what have you is super fast.
The thing, this laptop is really, really fast.
Okay, I'll have to check that out. Thanks for the tip, Rich. That's a good one. Okay, hold on. I'm just going back
I'm still waiting for the expansion box I bought from them in December for this MacBook Pro, which is basically going to take one port and turn it into a whole shed load of outputs.
Nice use of the vernacular there, Rich.
Thank you.
You will notice that last week's show was called "No, I Said Shed Load" because I think Rich misheard the. I thought that was a nice reference there. In fact, I would like to point out actually we seem to be experiencing quite an upturn in viewership. Our now Sonic Talk just video side is getting like 10, 12,000 views per episode quite quickly within 7 days of release. So it must be down to you, Rich, and your fantastic titles and input. So I just wanted to let's shine our nails and all the viewers, everybody. Thank you.
Thankful for every single one of the people who are interested in anything we have to say about this stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I did an interesting interview this morning. There was a guy locally from the local, I think it was DBS Music, where he's doing a music technology degree, I guess. And he's writing a paper on, what did he call it? It was called, hold on, I'm just see if I can find him. It's called, no, let me see. It's got a very specific name. It's I'm writing the Technostalgia. It was the phrase he used, and it was just an interesting kind of thing about how and why perhaps there's this kind of continued nostalgia for previous technology rather than kind of current. And it was a very interesting conversation. Well, it was fairly one-sided because I just talked most of the time. But
as you know, I like to use the word romance a lot. When it comes to that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And I like that. I'm a romantic, man. I like it. I got my MS-20 and my multi-moog over there and my clavinet. Well, in the museum.
Excellent. But it was interesting because I mean it allowed me to kind of form some more kind of concrete notions as to why that might be. And that was an interesting part of it. It's like one thing is, analog synthesis is, as generally speaking, fairly straightforward and easy to use. Most people can kind of get it. And at the same time, when a lot of these instruments were first released, they were iconic because there weren't very many other ones around, and they made kind of quite big inroads into the music scene. So people were very aware of them because there were, at any one time, there wouldn't have been more than 4 or 5 kind of big current instruments or synthesizers around. And now we've got this kind of much higher level. There's many, many more of them. So even if things do come out, and one of the questions he asked was, are there any current synthesizers that you think will become classics or iconic? And I thought, well, that's a really interesting question. I wonder if that's even possible because there are so many more.
Well, and it's also because on some level, the synthesizer has become disconnected necessarily from the controller. So, for example, an ARP 2600 had a presentation that involved what that keyboard felt like to operate and what that panel felt like to operate, and you had a whole total physical experience of operating it. In today's synths, that's not always the case. The synthesizer is not always connected to the keyboard you're playing, but in some cases, like say the OB6, it is. And I think that the OB6 might be such an instrument.
Yeah, well, I think to a degree as well, some of the I think the Moog Sub 37 is one of those instruments. It's a sort of apex of design and performance and sound. And I think some of the Dreadbox stuff will be classic.
I was just going to say, if he's lucky, that guy who makes that Dreadbox stuff will become one of those guys.
But iconic. There are only a few iconic synthesizers.
That's what I mean. If he's lucky,
if he's lucky. But I mean, classic and iconic. The iconic thing is the other side. And another thing that came up was this sort of fixation with build quality and how our modern synths, the build quality is a thing. And that made me think a little bit about that as well, which is, would we be prepared to pay the amount of money it would cost to build something in a way that we would consider to be built like a tank, built to last, whatever it may be? Because at the same time as that,
we're finding out.
Yeah,
there are still people making $3,500 synths.
Sure.
Mostly the price points tend to be 25 and down, and usually 2,000 and down. But there are still a couple of things that come out at that really, really high end sort of Korg Oasis price point. where you've got this flagship product, GX1 kind of flagship product that you're gonna, but these days it's more likely to come out at $1999 list, with a Fifth Street price of $1,500 to $1,600.
Sure.
Well, I don't know. I'm guessing. I don't know what DeepMind costs, but I'll bet you it's got a list price of around $2,000, and it doesn't cost more than that.
No, it's got a list price of $1,000.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
DeepMind has a list price of $1,000.
Yeah, $999 US.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
well, like I said, it's not that many companies that can take that kind of risk anymore.
That's exactly the point, isn't it? Yeah.
Expensive product. There's not many companies that can afford to fail with a product anymore. There's not that kind of freewheeling R&D that there was at one point.
Well, you say that, but then in your previous... I refer you back to your previous comment about how Roland could afford to fail, assuming they were to, with the cloud-based thing.
Well, they're taking a shot. They're taking their best shot, and I think it's a pretty good shot, but we'll see how it pans out.
Yeah.
They're trying to go sideways and incorporates, there is no current subscription model for that stuff. You are, however, subscribing to get Pro Tools every year these days, or various other people are working that subscription model thing all the time too. So
I think the trick is to basically not frame it as a subscription, but ultimately when it comes down to it, that's what you're doing, because even if you say, well, you said that your iPad is creaking a bit at the edges when you're trying to run certain things to run the OS. So effectively, you might have to upgrade that. What's that cycle? That's maybe 2-3 years. That's $300. That's kind of $10 a month. It's essentially the same thing, except you're not paying for any stuff, any actual physical product.
I think this is a 5-year-old design. The iPad Mini 2. This was the first thing they built with a Retina display. First iPad Mini with a Retina display.
Okay, so you're getting pretty good return on investment for that.
I got about 5 years out of that. And the computer I'm still using at Nile Studio is a 12-core Mac Pro from 2011.
Wow.
The computer that's in front of me that I'm doing this show on, the iMac in front of me, is from somewhere around 2011, 2012. The only new computer in the room is this MacBook Pro next to me that I'm playing all these keyboards out of these days.
Yep. Well, I know I'm much the same. And we run the switching system on an iPad, an original iPad. Which is, God, how many years that is. Is that even this century? I guess it must be just about. I mean, it's it's old.
And you had to find something else to hold the door open.
Yeah, well, no, I use it every day. I mean, I use that every day. And our edit machines are 8-core Mac Pros, which are probably 2011, maybe 2010. I mean, that's like old. Oops, I pressed the wrong button again. What did I press?
They work every day.
Yeah.
They work every day.
But it has to be said, when you start running things that you're familiar with on hardware that is really zippy, you just go, whoa, that really feels like a different thing. When you turn away, I
reckon that life cycle is about less than a month that you have that feeling. I'm serious. And it's been happening to me at various stages for the last 40 years. But I'm serious. For that month that first month you see the speed boost, you're sitting there going, wow. And then 2 months in, you're like, what's taking so long? Why am I waiting for this thing? And then the next speed bump makes you go, wow. And then what's taking so long? It's
I'd just like to
swing between wow and what's
absolutely. I'd just like to point out that there's quite a lot of suggestions, certainly in the YouTube chat room. Volcas to serve to be classics. Electrons, possibly the Make Noise Zero Coast has been put forward. What else have we got?
Volcas. That's
Volcas.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, I think they're I hate to use that phrase, but sort of they are kind of game changers, aren't they? They were game changers. And, I mean, we did a piece, Meet the Makers with Tatsuya, and, some of the stuff that he introduced into the world of synthesizers, in terms of making the new generation of affordable analogs, that's perhaps designers have become more iconic because they're shaping a range, because you tend to take nowadays, perhaps what happens is, previously you'd have a synthesizer and you wouldn't maybe have quite so many iterations of that technology, whereas now you have as many iterations as you could possibly get out of, I'm talking Roland Supernatural, you're talking,
so they bought all those boards, and damn it, they're going to find something to use them in.
It's that joke I've got about, there's a warehouse full of D-Beam
Yeah, right. Controllers.
D-beam controllers waiting to be put into something, and they over-ordered, but they got a great price break.
They offered them all to Imogene Heap for a really bargain price.
Yeah, well, who knows?
Joking.
I think there might be one more topic in it. I'm not sure. I think we might be nearly there. Oh, yeah. Did you see this? This was on Peter Kern's blog, cdm.link. And this is Steinberg of actually bringing the Linux VST SDK, the VST SDK to Linux, which is a really kind of quite a big move, really, because obviously, as we know, Linux has always been falling a bit behind in terms of the of how it, the kind of plugins it's got accessible to. Even though there were wrappers made. I mean, we can't forget, or I have forgotten the name of it. There have been various hosts that have been trying to be built that you can wrap VST plugins into and then play on kind of a Linux-based operating system. Now they might well be available in terms of natural. And the other thing that came up in this article was the fact that VST SDK is used to actually develop quite a lot of plugins that you might be using in AU only, because
that was interesting.
Often, it's an AU wrapper around a core VST product.
I didn't know that.
That's
very
either.
Interesting that you can do that. And I'm sure it saves them a lot of time and resources if that's easily done.
Well, and that is very encouraging, because if you just open up another platform that essentially is you spit the same code out and I guess you render it in a slightly different package. I mean, this is the classic, oh yeah, it's really easy. All you have to do is press this button instead of this button. I'm sure it's not that simple, but if you're developing on the same SDK, then that could be a really big deal.
I suspect our friend Guillaume at Blue Cat Audio knows all about this, because he hosts both. So it wouldn't, and writes for both. So I mean, everybody probably knows about this except us end users. Yeah. Chances are. I mean, anybody who's ever written for them. But anyhow, this is a very interesting development because, Linux is running on things barely bigger than a flash drive these days, with like little cables hanging off the side for the gazintas and gazatas. And if you can actually, run VST technology within that easily, then the limitations get blown off, and a lot of opportunity becomes available to that platform for DAW type softwares or specialized recording software or samplers, or there's a whole range of things you can do at that point. Yeah. So it was really exciting. So exciting that I sent the link to my computer savvy son, who's at a technology conference in Vegas right now, some IBM Interconnect conference. And,
all right.
He was intrigued as well, because they're all Linux heads in the high end of that world. And like I said, the devices are getting smaller and cheaper that run this.
Well, it is interesting, because I know there was quite a lot of talk. I mean, we've just done a piece on the MPCX, the new Akai, the MPC Live and the MPCX, which we were expecting them to be running on Windows 10 core embedded. And I know that Microsoft were pushing that as a sort of alternative platform and could run, because you could, like it was with Windows, I've forgotten the name of it now. There was a sort of version where you could drop whole areas of the OS and just focus on the core functions you needed. And you can write your own, you can modify your own Linux distributions, and they run a Linux core, not a Windows 10 core. So once you start to bring those in, and they've got their own plugins and effects that are running on both, the hardware and on the MPC Touch software as well. So they must have a common code base. So this is starting to have more and more of an impact. And I know, we do kind of quite regularly talk about the concept of having dedicated little hardware boxes that just have a single purpose. And this kind of, I guess, brings it closer, because if you just go, well, I can run it, if I can have a VST player and I can figure out how to get the MIDI and the audio in and out, I can just be running full-time a copy of, insert the name of your VST instrument of choice or effect box of choice, and the hardware just needs to be just fast enough to be able to do that and nothing else, then let's go for it. Mm-hmm. I think that's
your desktop computer, your high-end professional desktop computer is the size of a USB hub. Running Linux.
Well, it's interesting. I was talking about clearing out the room. The other thing I found in there was an SM Pro Audio V machine, which was a little box, about so big, that was a Linux computer that would run hosted VST plugins. I mean,
Plugins,
it was a horrible thing to use and never really kind of took off and became, you know, it was all really fiddly to use and what have you. But, you know, assuming you got it working right and you just had an input and output, you know, you just get it sussed. It's just a question of finding that right hardware that does it all right and is repeatable or stable enough to not bother you if once in a while it might drop, or you've got the opportunity to go to a more pro version, which is solid as a rock, you know, SSDs and flash, no moving parts, all that sort of thing. I don't know. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. It's exciting though. It's good. And it's exciting, and it's all getting smaller and cheaper.
Yeah.
And more functional.
Oh, it absolutely is. Oh, I got to show you this.
I'm getting bigger and less functional. No, I'm just kidding.
I got to show you this. Did you see this guy? This is something that Ed just sent me. This is called Pink Trombone. I think we wrote an article. It's a bare-handed speech. So you can modify the sound. You modify the mouth to create vocal sounds in real time. It's mental. And introduce the nasal cavity. It's absolutely massive addictive. This is called Dude.al Pink Trombone. You've got to check it out. It's absolutely addictive. Maybe if I get good at it, I could figure out how to actually present the podcast just playing that only by articulating my voice. But I don't think I will. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that one in just for a bit of fun. Because Ed, our modular guy, he said, I can't stop playing it. It's highly addictive. And it is quite, actually. You should try it out. I think there's a link on our news page because I think Ed wrote a story on it. I think that's about it. I think we've managed to get single-handedly, Rich. You've managed to take us over the line to nearly 5 o'clock. That's almost an hour of waffling on my part and a highly focused discussion on your part. So I want to congratulate you there, Rich. Good work.
The pleasure was all mine, Nick.
No, it was actually all mine. Thank you, Rich. That's been a great pleasure. And we should also say, once again, just mention if you're interested in entering the Isotope competition, please, you need to go over to Twitter and the hashtag Mix Visualizer as one word and the hashtag Neutron to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. will get you entered for the competition draw next week. So I think that's about it. I want to say thank you very much to all our YouTube viewers. Been a pleasure to have you. And if you're not already subscribed, please do. We've got 2,000 to go before we're hitting our 100K. I'm desperate to get there before too long because it just feels like a milestone we want to hit. But I don't want to come across too needy. So, in your own time, if you feel the need. But I guess if you're there, you probably are already subscribed because you would have got the notification that we were live. But anyway, if you're watching on Facebook, go and subscribe. Anyway, Rich, thank you very much for joining us. I hope to see you again soon, and we'll have another chat.
My pleasure, Nick. Thank you for having me and for having the podcast. I love it.
You're welcome. And that's it for this week. We'll say goodbye, and we'll just fade to black and see you next time.